Hello and welcome back. So as promised in my last finding an unknown side trigonometry video, I am going to show you the second process we may need to find an unknown side in a right angle triangle using trig. So when we're finding an unknown side using trigonometry, sometimes the unknown is going to appear in the denominator, and that's when we need to use this process that I'm going to show you today, because it's slightly different to our process that I've shown you previously. So I just have a really basic example for us today. I want to find the value of w correct to 2 decimal places. So you can see in the diagram that w appears in the hypotenuse. Now, if you remember each of the trig ratios, if the hypotenuse always ends up on the bottom of the fraction. So if you're ever finding the hypotenuse, it's going to be the denominator. So obviously I need to look where my marked angle is and the sides that I'm using according to that. So I've got an angle of 55, and opposite to my angle of 55 I have a side of 80, and of course the hypotenuse is w. So that means we are using sine. So we start out writing with our trig ratio and our angle. So sine 55 is equal to 80 over w. The aim of this whole thing is to get w on its own. So what that means is I need to multiply throughout by w. So I'm going to multiply everything by w and then simplify that a little bit. So w sine 55 is the same as saying w times sine 55, ends up being equal to 80. And then we want to get rid of the sine 55 from the w, so we need to divide throughout by that. So we get w is equal to 80 over sine 55. And then we can pop that in our calculator, and we're going to round to 2 decimal places, of course, so we end up with w is equal to 97.66. Now, I always encourage you to check that your answer is reasonable. So if I get a value of the hypotenuse is 97 and the other side that I was given was 80, that is absolutely reasonable. Okay, my hypotenuse needs to be longer than my side of 80. Now, obviously in that previous example, that was a lot of working, and I would not expect you to write all that working for every question that you do. So I want to use this example to show you how you actually can set out your working, still showing all the right amount of information, but just doing it as quick as possible. So we're going to have another triangle. This time we have a marked angle of 34 degrees, and we have a side of 18 and a side of x. So no hypotenuse this time. So from my angle, I've got the opposite side and the adjacent side, where the opposite side is 18 and the adjacent is x. So that means I'm going to use tan. So tan 34 is equal to 18 over x. Now, what ended up happening in our working out with our last example, we simply ended up swapping the position of our angle and our unknown, and that's exactly how I want you to show your working. So we know what's gone on. We've multiplied and then we've divided, but the shorter way that you can show that is simply to skip to that x is equal to 18 over tan 34, and then you're going to get your answer. So it's much quicker, but you're still showing the important info, and the important info is that you have chosen the appropriate trig ratio, and you have put the correct sides in the correct positions in the fraction. So just to quickly sum up today, we now have 2 processes to find an unknown side using trig, and the process that we use just depends on where the unknown lies in the fraction. And we always start our working with the appropriate trig ratio of the given angle, no matter what.